Hi, everybody. You're tuned in to Where Waters Meet, a podcast featuring discussions on fly fishing, art, all things outdoors with a conservation focus. Okay, everybody. We're here with Where Waters Meet podcast, and Johnny is back from the Salmon River.
Oh, hey, man.
Yeah. And your host, Alex, and we're going to get into some cool stuff today. But first, Salmon River. So you made a January trip.
Yeah, quick run. It wasn't planned at all. My wife had some business down there, and she asked me if I'd like to come along, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go down for a day.
Yeah.
And the water was kind of high, snowing, cold.
Yeah.
But I had 3 hookups, which is better than no hookups.
That is better than no hookups.
I didn't land anything, but I had a good day. It beat sitting home at Maine.
Well, I was excited that you were going because I was like, maybe Johnny's gonna figure some things out because I've never been out at that time. We pretty much do our trip like end of October, November time at some point.
I went to the same spot we usually head to. Do what you know, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't really have time to explore around, but yeah, I went to the same spot, used the same flies, and got the same result. So it was fun.
Yeah. So I know what you use then for a fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty top secret.
Top secret. Yeah. We used to get just complicated with fly selection, and then finally we're like, I don't think that we need to do this. And now it's I tie up like 100 of the same thing in different color variations before we go out, essentially.
Yeah. I forget what the pattern's called. It's just I
think it's steely omelet, or I think they call it a blob.
Yeah.
Yeah, with some F&F.
F&F, yeah. Fitz jelly or Fritz jelly.
Fitz jelly.
Yeah.
I like, that's what we should call it now. Get out the old Fitz jelly.
Yeah. It's a great pattern. Tie about 100 of them and
lose half of them. And, catch some fish though. But that's cool though to know though that they work like midwinter.
Yeah.
So,
no, it worked great.
We need to go out in the spring too at some point in time. I haven't done that either, but I hear that can be fun too.
Yep. I'm actually going out to Ohio in beginning of March.
You are?
Yep.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're going to go out and visit Ohio Mike?
Yep, I am.
Mr. Mike?
Yep, that'll be fun. I haven't seen him since last year. Yep.
That's awesome. You give us the intel on that.
Yep.
What?
I'll get the Ohio intel.
How long of a drive is that to go?
I don't know. I'm giving myself 2 days.
To drive there?
Yeah. I'm going to bring my camper, so
okay.
I'm just going to drive down and
camp somewhere.
Pull over at Walmart and sleep in Walmart or whatever.
Cracker Barrels too, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get free camping at the Cracker Barrel, and
cool.
You can corrode your arteries at night and then be in a lard apple crisp coma, and then go to sleep in the camper.
I might just jet boil some ramen.
That works too. But yeah, so we're here. Just figured that we had mentioned that we got a new painting up here on the easel. And this is a brook trout that is going to Mr. Parker Morrison here in Maine. And
congratulations.
And I'm excited to see it in their camp up along the Galloway. So
yeah.
Really happy that family's getting it, and thank everybody for supporting my work. And but on to the On the Vice portion of the show, and I gotta use.
Yeah, do it.
Should I do it?
Yeah.
Today we're gonna talk about
the Zoo Cougar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I'm gonna need a moment after that. That was, I guess, fitting.
Yeah.
For this monster fly. That
it's a great pattern.
It is a great pattern. Yeah, we both like this fly a lot. You can, if you want to go over some of the characteristics you like, this is a larger version that John tied. I have some minis, which is kind of a new size that I've been tying, but go for it. Yeah.
This was probably like one of my first Galloup patterns that I started fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. It's got a marabou tail with a wood duck overwing. I think it's two feathers on the overwing wing, and spun deer head on it. I forget what the wrap is on the body.
Pearl braid.
Yeah, pearl braid.
And then you usually run calf tail under the.
Yeah. You don't usually use pearl braid, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, I should say I do if I have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I don't, I don't. But yeah.
It's been a minute since I've tied them.
Yeah. And this and I think you said wood duck for the back, but it's mallard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Mallard flank.
But we'll show a close up of this fly of both of these so that you guys can see them. But it also has a little bit of calf tail, which typically you use like a yellow calf tail as the underwing, and that is really important to the action of the fly because it keeps the mallard from not dropping down around, and it maintains its cupped portion. So the idea of this fly, which is this is a Kelly Galloup pattern, which is kind of the pattern that I think everybody kind of comes to know him first by and kind of set him on the map. I think so to speak.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was his.
And I've heard him talk about this being like kind of a variation of a muddler minnow in some regards, that he loved fishing the muddler, and that kind of gave him the idea of the deer hair head. But the concept of the fly is that deer hair head pushes a lot of water, and the cupped mallard flank then gives it an irregular swimming pattern when you stall the fly. So we strip the fly. We also do some of the jerk strip technique that Kelly talks about, and he gets really in depth with a jerk strip technique, which is kind of actually a little bit along the lines of how bass fishermen animate flies. But essentially you're using the rod tip to move the fly, and then you're stripping just to pull up the excess slack that was created by jerking it. But essentially when this fly accelerates and then quickly decelerates, which it does decelerate really fast because that deer hair head is pushing so much water, the cup mallard flank makes it kick one way or another.
It's so erratic.
Yeah. And it does a really good job of making like...
And then it comes back up.
Yeah, it does.
This has to be fished on a sinking line.
Yeah, that is a good point to make. Yeah, because if you have a floating line, yeah, I mean,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's going to be skating on the surface. And I mean, I think it imitates a lot of different things, like this olive color. I think a lot of the times this imitates a frog even, and he originally tied it for a sculpin, but
it's a great sculpin. It's probably the best sculpin imitation I've seen as far as how a sculpin moves.
Yeah.
If you ever seen a sculpin, usually they're way down on the bottom, but they're darters.
Yeah, they are darters.
You don't ever see one up in the column just like swimming around. They are everywhere.
They are all over the place. And I know he's talked about like the profile of it was what he was achieving with that, but this is fished primarily mid upper in the water column, and you aren't going to see sculpin there.
Not where a sculpin would.
Yeah. But they do
wounded bait fish,
and whether at a certain level you're just creating a reactionary bite. I don't even know if it has to imitate anything exactly, but it just plain works, and it's fun because you get actually small fish that even get very reactionary to this fly. You can fish it very big. This is exceptionally small.
That's small.
This is probably average size, I would say.
Yeah,
and you can get as big as you want, and then they get into whole other things where there's flies that are tied just like this, but they have an articulated section on the back, like the heifer groomer and all these different kind of Kelly patterns that have used some of these characteristics of a single hook fly, and then they incorporate it into an articulated.
Yeah. A lot of mistakes when people tie these is they really pack the head tight. Mm-hmm. And this is a very loose packed deer hair head, and it was designed that way.
Yeah, I actually do mine a little bit looser than I even used to. This is really nice.
I think that's great. This one's a commercial tie, and it's actually, I think it's packed a little too tight.
That one is very tight. You guys will be able to see that. This is the tan one. We'll have it kind of in the little video.
I think this is one I tied. That one's a little looser, but
Yeah. The looser the deer hair is, it doesn't have to be well, this one is approaching like a bass bug. Like if you were to get like a deer hair bass popper, where they spin the deer hair and then they have a packer or a stacker and they pack it in, then they tie another section. They do it. A lot of times they do that on the commercial ones, but it just ends up holding too much water. If you have it more loosely packed, when you pick that
up,
fly up,
it sheds.
It does, it sheds. And I like and I love and appreciate this fly for its ease of castability, even if and still maintaining a pretty broad profile if that's what you're looking for.
Yep. And I'd say it's not an easy tie.
No, I would agree with that too.
Yep.
I would agree with that too, because like the thing that I'll say about this is and I'll take this little one here, but it's hard for you to see, but the reason why I feel like it isn't is the components of how this mallard flank is attached, along with what you have for a calf tail underwing, determines everything with this fly. And I would not consider myself a pro zoo cougar tire, because even when I tie a couple dozen of these and I go out, I'll get one that I put on and it just doesn't swim.
Yep.
It doesn't. And it's like it's going sideways
Yep.
and most of the time that has to do with that my mallard flank is just not correct. And that's the hard part too, is like your mallard flank you want to have really nice center stems on them so that it's not got a kick to it, because then that's going to make the fly act wrong.
Yeah. If you go to Slide House Inn and stuff like that, he sells paired mallard flanks that they've actually gone through mallard, found the best feathers, and made you a pack of like 20 so you can tie 20 nice flies.
I've bought those before. Yeah, the select mallard ones. Yeah.
And they're nice.
They are, especially if you want to tie a really big zoo cougar, because so these small ones that I tied, you can always find small mallard within a generic mallard bag that you get. You can always find them for the smaller sizes. Sometimes you have to search a long time to find one, but it gets really, really hard if you're looking for a big mallard feather.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy a bag and go through it and maybe have 5 good sets.
Yeah. Yeah, easily.
Maybe not even that.
Yeah, I agree. But to talk more about the fishability aspect of this, like I think that would be good, because like this is a fly that I fish very certain ways too. It's not
well, you have to fish it a certain way.
Yeah, and John touched on the fact that you have to have a sinking line, because this fly with the deer hair head is naturally very buoyant. So you need a line, and you see it. You'll oftentimes cast and your fly line sinking, and this will still just be sitting on the top.
Sitting on top, waiting.
And then you give it a nice little twitch, and then you get it under, and then it starts, fishing and following the line that your fly line is actually traveling, but has to be on a sinking line. For those people that like to swing flies, which I love to swing flies, John loves to swing flies, but this isn't really a swung fly. No. You fish this very actively.
It's an active, yep. It's a hunting fly.
It's a hunting fly. And like another thing that I would note about it is my favorite time to fish this is when, say, you and I are in the drift boat, or we have another guy in the drift boat that's committed to fishing a certain way, or we have clients that like to streamer fish that are committed to fishing a certain way. And that is, we really don't want to anchor.
No.
I mean, obviously you'll anchor at times, but this is a fly that if you can be moving with your drift boat at the same speed that the current is, and you can cast slightly upstream or even at a 45 to the bank, and you can be moving this fly back to the boat and you're keeping in line with the boat, what happens is you reach this level where the speed of the boat and the speed of the river current are at a point where you're at a neutral level as far as how that is affecting your fly line. So you can be jerk stripping this back to the boat or stripping it, and you're going to get that erratic, action to the fly coming back. The problem with this is if the boat was anchored and the fly is dead below you and you start coming back, the action of the current on the fly in the fact that you're pulling it back against the current, it doesn't have the same erratic action because the flow just keeps it in line. So no matter what you do, the fly's just going to do this. It's not going to do this and dance all over the place and make that wounded kind of look.
Yeah. And the jerk strip is probably the best way to fish this rather than the pulling line.
Yeah.
Because you can this needs the animation.
It does.
And when you pull it, when you're pulling it with your rod tip rather than just pulling your line in, it just brings life to the fly.
It does. It definitely responds to the quickest acceleration that you can kind of give it, and then the fastest pause that you can give it. So the faster that it moves, and then the faster that it can pause, the better kind of that erratic kicking side to side action you're going to get, and you get a lot of fish on the pause with it. You know what I mean? Because what happens is
right after the pause.
Yeah, and I think having that neutral buoyancy kind of helps because we all fish like jiggy style streamers, and those have a different kind of action. But this has that stun kind of like weightless kind of action, where when it stalls, it just kind of
and it comes right up and
it really looks like a fish that got or bait that got stunned, or is got its last legs of kicking and but that's why I think it's a good fly, though, as far as I'm shocked at the small trout that will take that. And I think they're just very opportunistic in that they think it's dead.
Yeah.
It's
a great fly, man. I mean, I think for 2 years or so, you and I were just like, that's all we were fishing.
We were fishing it all the time. we were. And I would say for the waters that we fish here, it's probably my favorite bomb the banks search the river streamer because I feel like
it's light.
So you can cast all day.
And that's the ABCs of the drift boat. Always be casting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tire you out.
It doesn't tire you out. And I feel like the action that it has, if you have a day where you want to catch a big fish, but yet you would also it would be just great if you picked up some smaller fish too, so that you don't
get skunked.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this fly, I feel like you can trigger that predatory response, and the biggest fish, was say a 3-4 inch one of these, and yet you can still pick up a 12 or 14 inch, brown or bow with that same fly. So it's nice if you want a couple numbers, so you're like, okay, this is nice, but you still want to commit to catching a big fish. I think it's just a great pattern. It really is.
Another thing I like about it is most of the bites that are triggered on this are reactionary bites rather than feeding bites. You don't ever really get a subtle take with this.
No,
it's just slammed.
They want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what makes streamer fishing fun.
Yeah.
That's definitely what makes streamer fishing fun. I think that yellow would be my favorite color, I would say, in it. But I like yellow a lot, but I fish it. I don't really get too complicated beyond yellow and white and olive and black. Those are kind of the 4 colors that I kind of mess around with it in as far as tying.
I've got chartreuse in there. A couple chartreuse.
Have you fished chartreuse with it? Yeah. Did you like it?
It produced. Yeah. It's probably not my favorite. My favorite is yellow.
Yeah. Which is what I think it was traditionally. I remember seeing Kelly at the Beans show, and I remember talking to him, and he said that he was surprised where this fly goes. And he said that there was some fishing club off the coast of Maine that actually swung it on sink tips and twitched it for stripers, out on the Kennebec or something. And I was like, I haven't tried that, but maybe I should try it. I don't know. I mean, if you fished it slow enough on a sink line on the bottom, it could even look crabby.
Yeah, it could. Yeah. It could.
You know what I mean? You could kind of, like everybody's dragging crabs out here. You could even do that, but very versatile fly. I definitely would suggest.
Short leader.
Yeah, short leader. That's an excellent point. Yeah. Because they're making a decision quick. Like you said, it's the reactionary thing. So it's kind of like, they're going to make that decision, and your fly line isn't really spooking them at that point. You know what I mean? And it gives you better action. I think that having the shorter leader is good because like I have fished it on a long leader before.
It's too buoyant.
It is. It's too buoyant. So then your fly's riding up too high in the water column in relation to your actual fly line. And tying this in with a loop at the eye as opposed to just tying in cinched up on the eye is you get even better action on the stall. It'll dart and dance even better and
flop around.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much tie it with a loop. Do you? I mean, you probably do too, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten lazy every once in a while, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think all streamers you've got to tie on
no
with a loop, like jiggy type streamers. I don't. Well, some I do, but some I don't. But this one, I think it definitely helps it out.
Yeah, and like swinging, I don't.
Yeah, swinging.
I don't like in the fall. No, I don't. I just tie like right direct, and I know some people do though.
Yeah,
but yeah. So the Zoo Cougar, it's a Kelly Galloup pattern.
Yeah,
definitely one of our favorites and go-tos. And for anybody that wants to start fishing larger profile streamer flies, but maybe their prowess in casting isn't quite there yet.
Yep.
This is an awesome segue. It'll probably always be in your repertoire, but like if you want to hunt for bigger fish with a fly that still casts pretty stinking good.
It does. It cast really nice.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest this. And also boy, I just thought of something else to talk about with this fly that it's good for. I was gonna end this.
Oh, keep going.
Okay. Jeez.
Preach, daddy.
Smallmouth.
Yeah.
I love this fly for smallmouth fishing.
Yep.
And same thing. It's a big smallmouth magnet. They love it. And it's I mean, they're predatory reactionary fish anyways. You know what I mean? Very much so. And like the action of this just drives them crazy.
Yeah. And you can see like just about all your eats on this fly. What's great about this fly is you can track it.
Yeah.
So good too.
Yeah. Just, pow, 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 pow. It is. That's probably why we like it too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. It's visual. He's right. And being from a drift boat, I think it's always a plus if you have a fly that you like and you enjoy fishing it, and if that involves you visually seeing it, you're probably going to do a better job fishing it because you're staying engaged. You know what I mean? And if you're out there for 8 hours, like bombing streamers, if you're fishing, super deep black leech that you could like never, ever see, you're going to get bored.
Yeah. And it's a great fly too, to help you start to visualize what's actually happening when you're making your retrieve.
Yeah.
So that's something, because I have a really hard time like thinking of what my fly is actually doing.
But visually seeing it helps that.
But visually seeing it and being able to mimic the action that I saw, I can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point because I also think that I've learned a lot about. Excuse me. I think I've learned a lot about fish behaviors fishing this fly, because that reactionary aspect of what they do, whether they're coming up and they're just chasing, which sometimes happens, or if they really want to eat it, like it's neat because you learn what you're doing and how it's impacting the fish. And it is cool when you see where fish come from too, with it being so visual. You're out there, this does fish up in the water column enough so you can see it pretty good, and you'll see a fish rush out from a log or what have you. And also
right under the boat.
Right under the boat. I'm going to die here. I got to get some of this tea down. I'm glad I got that. But what I was going to say too is
spin it around so you can get your
here
your
we
merch.
Go. There we go. Western Maine yurts, baby. Which is where we're broadcasting from today, or recording, I should say. We aren't live broadcasting, not yet. But one other thing I was going to say about this is, for a rower, I love it when, like, say you're fishing this in the front of the boat.
Yeah.
I love it.
You can see it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
And it makes it more fun for me too.
As a guide, This is nice to be flying around than some heavy thing with some huge cone head or bead on it and get smacked in the head with
Yeah. 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 There's a reason why I like big hats.
Yeah, big
and
hat.
in a hood.
Yeah. And sunglasses.
Sunglasses with a couple of cheek plates. Oh man. All right. But yeah, so did you have anything else that you randomly wanted to add to this?
Probably. No, it's great. It's a great go-to, and I'm glad we did it. It's a great fly.
Yeah. So put it in your fly box, buy a couple of them,
Yeah.
and even try tying them if you like tying. So definitely it's approved.
Yeah.
It's approved. So, but another shameless plug is we're going to feature this little AL Poland hat, which features a brown trout flank of mine, and this is on a corduroy hat. This is a nice like cool weather option for you, and but we got these on the online store, which is at alpolandart.com. So check us out.
I've got that one. It's one of my favorites.
Is it John approved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Good.
Fits my huge melon, which is hard.
Yeah. John and I both have got, I think his coconut is slightly bigger than mine. I'm like a 7.5, 7 5/8, like somewhere in that range.
2 or 1 snapper.
Yeah. Yeah. This hat, the reason why you guys see me wear this hat all the time is because I was out in Jackson Hole and I put this on and I could put it on with 4 snaps. And I randomly said, that's a 4 snapper. And I looked over and a guy was looking at me and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I've talked to myself. I said, I usually can't fit hats on.
Don't get us going about hats.
Yeah.
The guy in Pulaski, remember him?
Yeah.
Boy, you guys are pretty serious about your hats.
What else are we here to be serious about? Yeah. Hats are good. But yeah. So we'll get into the meat of the show, which we were kind of thinking of what we wanted to talk about today, and we kind of settled in on talking about warm water within trout rivers and what that means for the fishermen, maybe some of the ethical dilemmas that can arise from that. We might talk a little bit about regs in relation to it, and kind of culturally, I guess, is like a thing that we wanted to talk about because, I do think we're seeing a little bit of a culture shift.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good that the more that we talk about it, maybe we could even see more of a cultural shift, in the future.
Well, a lot of people just don't know.
They don't. And I think it's also important to note, like, I hope that we never sound like we're talking down to people because we've all been like in the same spot where like John and I we didn't know anything. I mean, we knew nothing. We were just like out there kind of winging it and doing it. And to begin with, when you start fishing, I think just learning to catch fish is so hard when you're learning how to fly fish. And it's so confusing when you're like, what are you talking about? There's all these different weight rods and weight lines. And then like, I just remember like tippet, people talking to me about, I'm like, what do you mean 5X? And like, cause I grew up like conventional fishing. So I'm like, why is this not rated in like pounds?
Oh.
And like, so then if you are trying to jump down and like educate yourself about like warm water, that's very small in the grand scheme. I feel like when you're first starting out fishing.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you don't have anybody that's like guiding you.
Yeah.
I think you and I both kind of went into it on our own.
Yeah.
We had a little guidance by people who had also just started.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we didn't have the breadth of knowledge handed down to us.
No, we didn't. And I know we're going to die coughing here today. I don't think we're sick people,
No,
but
it's weird. I just have like something in my throat.
that's what I feel like. Yeah. Maybe it's a sickness.
We got down with the sickness.
Down with the sickness. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I didn't really have a mentor starting out, and luckily for you and I think though that we're both like information consumers, so that probably sped up the the learning curve.
Yep.
Yeah, because I you know, like we both kind of get a little consumed, and you know, if we can't sleep, we just sit down on our iPad and just read random stuff about fly fishing and
Yeah.
products. And
Hey, did you know that?
yeah, saw that last night when I was sleepless. You know. But yeah, but I think it's worthwhile to note though that everybody has different learning styles and tactics. So anybody that can have a mentor, that's awesome. You know what I mean? It really is. But the point of me bringing that up is just that you know, we're no better than anybody else.
Yeah.
We all started in the exact same place, and I knew nothing about warm water. And I remember going trout fishing. The first year that I started trout fishing, I didn't know. I was out trout fishing like in the middle of August when it was 95-degree days, and I didn't even have any idea that you should bring a thermometer and check the water temperature.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
And if you guys like see me at the trailhead or something, and I say, well, the water's 70 degrees down there now, guys. No, I'm not talking down to you. I'm just trying to give you some information.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
and we spend a lot of time. We check places out during warm water times too, just to see what fish are doing, to see if there's been fish that are moving into certain areas for cold water refuge. And I enjoy getting out and just seeing what's happening. But it is shocking how many people you do see on our local waters still fishing when the water's 70, 72, 74 degrees. You know, you're having those high spikes, and the fish, they really kind of need to be left alone.
Yeah. And we've said it in other podcasts. I think the Androscoggin, where we fish a lot, that's just when some of the caddis hatches take off. Those hot water days and just hot days in general.
Yeah. And that is a good point, because there's yeah, I mean, there's times where you can go down there and it's 8 o'clock at night and you look and you're like, wow, there's fish rising. There's plenty of bug activity. It looks like a great time to be fishing. But if you put your thermometer in the water, you'd say, oh,
Yeah.
this isn't good. And the thing about it that a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize this to begin with at all until I educated myself later, but you know, you start fly fishing and you say, it's very easy to quickly become a catch and release guy.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of the culture. So you do that. And then, you know, and I've heard this many times where then you kind of hang your hat on that. You know what I mean? So people say, oh, I'm being careful with the fish and I'm catch and release. And the funny thing about it is if it was a water where somebody could come in and spin fish and, you know, say that you could keep 2 fish and they kept their 2 fish and then they left, they actually probably killed less fish than the guy that showed up and caught 20 fish in 72-degree water and then said that he let them all go. And he might feel better about himself, but he probably did a bigger harm to the river than, you know, the guy that, you know, kept him and left. So warm water is an interesting topic, and there's a lot of personal ethics that come into play with it that are just they aren't regulated. You know, there's no laws or anything like that.
Not in the state of Maine.
No. So it's just personal regulation through trying to be ethical about a resource that you care about. So, but to give a little bit of education along with it, like lethal limits, like for fish, I mean, that would be a good thing to talk about. We personally stop fishing all of our waters when we get in the upper 60s and you start seeing it hit, you know, touch 70 midday. We shut down.
Yeah. 68 is probably when I start thinking about heading home.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you have temps, you know, it's one of those things where even if you have morning temps that are cool enough, like, you know, and it's getting hot later in the day, that fish is going to be going through a period of stress anyways, just to survive where they are. So you really should think about changing up your game. You know what I mean? And we use like the 68 kind of 70, like that's like our cutoff point. The reason why is the body of water that we fish on here primarily. You know, we got 3 different trout species. So we have brook trout, and the wild ones reside in the tributaries, and they use the main stem seasonally when water temps permit. And then we have wild rainbow trout, and we have stocked some wild brown trout as well. And the brown trout are more resilient as far as their lethal limit. It's around 80-ish. You'll hear numbers that are plus or minus a little bit from that as far as it's lethal at that point for them. And the rainbow trout is around 78. And brook trout, I've heard 70, but anywhere from 70 to 72, 74 in that range is like lethal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing that you got to realize is that a lethal limit does not mean that it's safe for you to fish up to that limit. It means really the point of where that fish is under stress is actually much earlier than that. And so when we're going, we cut it off at the upper 60s, and we feel like we're pretty safe for most of the fish that we're fishing for at that point. And it's the other thing to note is it's highly variable when that time comes.
Yeah.
It's highly variable.
Yeah.
But because it can mean, we've had years where we're having to get off in mid-June.
Yep. And then other years you can fish all through.
Yeah.
Yep. So water level related, temperature, regular air temperature related. Rain and flows has a big thing to do with it, and outside temps. If you had no water at all and you have no new water entering the system and you got a week and it's 90, the river's cooked. Yeah.
It wouldn't even matter if it was, the beginning of June. You might have to stop fishing it for a period of time, but then you might have temperatures where they kind of like regulate down and you're in the 70s and the low 70s. And let's say it's cloudy and rains for like a week and you don't really have any sun, that river could cool. Maybe you might have a couple days where you could fish it.
Or if like nighttime temps, for some reason it snaps down into the 50s or something at night. Yeah. Only takes a couple days really to drop that water temp.
Yeah.
At least where we fish.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like pretty much it's funny if you take your air temps and you averaged your daytime and nighttime temps, it's literally like the median, like average temperature between that is going to be pretty much like during the summer months what the water temp is. It's pretty close. Yeah. And just to note, like, unfortunately where we are, there is a site that's on a tributary, which I won't mention, that does have a water temp sensor gauge, but where we are, we unfortunately don't have that. But there are a lot of locations where the USGS sites actually have a water temp sensor. So you actually can go online and you can even check it. So, say that you had a 2-hour drive to a body of water that you like to fish. Yeah. You could kind of look at that beforehand. But the more that you fish an area, and if you take your own temps yourself, you will get to have a feel and you'll get to have a know. And you literally can just be like, nope, like, I know that's going to be hot, and you'll have a feel. Like we can know what the river is within a couple degrees pretty easy just by knowing what it is. And John just brought this out. I just got one of these too. I'll let him talk about this thing. This is like his favorite product.
Yeah, well, it goes with me when I'm fishing in Maine. This is always with me, and it's a Fish Pond, just digital instant read thermometer, and it works great. I've double checked it, cross checked it with a couple other thermometers, and it works great for us taking data samples and stuff. And like I said, it's instant read. You hold down on the button, it turns on. You plop it down in there. I've got it on a lanyard usually, so I can get a little deeper. You know?
Yeah, it's submersible, which is good.
Yeah, it's submersible. But I mean, I forget, it was like $34 or something like that.
They're cheap.
I mean,
especially for what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
it's a great tool.
Yeah.
So I always have this. I always have sunglasses.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I always have.
And the thing about that, like I've used the traditional ones, which you can definitely get from the drift boat. It isn't a huge deal. I tie like a long lanyard to it with a loop, and what I do is I drop it down my oar, so it's right near my oar lock, and it hangs over the boat, so it's in the river all the time. So throughout the day, I just pick it up and like look at it. So like I'll start in the morning, I can be like, it's cold, but then you look and you're like, wow, it's kind of warming up as you go, and I can look at it, and that works for me in the drift boat. This is awesome though, because there's just like, if you're waiting and stuff like that and you go down to the water, you can just get your reading so quick. It's not like you got to sit there and be like, well, I'm going to stand here for 2 minutes and wait until I have like a pretty accurate reading.
And so I'm in my late 40s now. And in the last 4 or 5 years, my up close vision has just, so it's really hard for me to read the regular style thermometers.
It is
and I can read that fine.
I haven't gotten there yet. That's a good point, though. Old man numbers.
Hey, man, when it starts happening, it happens fast.
That's what my eye doctor said. He said, you wait, you're going to lose it, and it's going to happen at the snap of a fingers. And I'm like, all of my friends that I have that are like a couple years older than me, it just went like that.
It's fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm prepared. I got my thermometer, so I'm like ready. I'm ready to go. But yeah, so like lethal limits, know the lethal limits for trout, I would say, and have a thermometer for sure. I mean, it's your friend, you know, and in the same regard, you know, if you fish bodies of water that get hot, oftentimes smaller tributaries, if you want to hike up to the headwaters of some of these smaller tributaries, you can find some really fun fishing for small little wild trout, and you mix up your game. For me, it's fun because like we've been in the drift boat for quite a while, and I enjoy getting out on foot and seeing what's out there. Hike. Yeah, just change it up and like
I found a lot of cool spots, man.
And go for a swim. Yeah. It's good. I like it because Gretchen really likes it, and the kids. So like that's kind of fun too because it's like maybe not quite as involved as a big float, but we get to kind of go out and this year I hope to get Finn out too, and do some of that. But like fishing for other things though, you ought to talk about that a little bit because I think that's something that in the state of Maine, people it's a good opportunity to take advantage of other things.
Yeah, we're super lucky in the state. I mean, there's just so much we can fish for. There's so many other species that we can go for. Like, I wasn't a huge bass fisherman, to be honest with you. You know, kind of trout snobby.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you start picking them up as a bycatch, and you're like, damn, this is fun.
Yeah.
Now I see why there's like this whole industry built around this one fish. And so, I mean, we're lucky. We can just go down to our next section of river and it's a great bass fishery and they can take the temps.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of species out there that can take the temps and it's fun. It's a blast. You change it up.
Yeah. And like this last year, we, I think it was the first week of July that we started going out in the poling skiff that we built for stripers, which was new.
That's, you know, brand new.
Yeah, we hadn't poled for stripers, but I mean we had striper fished in the past quite a bit, but we were like, let's do this kind of different. And that's another example where maybe we would have caught more stripers in June, in the beginning of, or the end of May, so to speak, out of the skiff.
Yep.
But we were fishing our trout waters and we were dedicated to those and we were collecting data, you know, like we've talked about in the past, like during the months when we could do that, we were taking advantage of it. And then we were like, we're going to switch gears though.
Yep.
And we did.
Yep. And you guys don't need a poling skiff or boat to go fish for stripers. Just go down to some rocks, you know, and on the coast, man, and cast it out there.
Yeah. And beaches and there's a lot of shallow flats that you can get out on and even wade up quite a ways on the shallow flats. And like, I mean, that's just one aspect of where you can change up your game. I mean, smallmouth, like you said, is one for sure. I mean, we have, you know, there's pike, muskie. We got we have carp fishery even, you know what I mean? Like
that's on the list.
That's on the list. Yeah. And it's like, but and then the small streams get further north. Like there's always fish, but I think probably taking into account warm water has made me a better fisherman. Because what it's done is it's made me change up my game and my tactics because I just go for different things at different certain times.
Yeah. I agree. I'm trying to think here. I was thinking about like when it gets hot where we fish, like there are cold water spots in our river. And I think those spots should be protected. Especially when if you go out and you take a sample and the main stem's like 73, 74, and you slide over and you're fishing in the seam that's like 62 or something like that, I won't do it anymore because those fish need a break.
Yeah.
They're in, the fish are there in that seam. We know this.
Yeah.
We know that. And it's time to move on.
Yeah, they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason, and I don't know. I wish our state would do a little bit more on that end, but
Maybe in the future.
maybe
We'll see. And I think that's a good point that you made, because when we say like tributaries, like if you're fishing a larger river and the river temps are warm, tributaries could potentially be an option. We aren't talking about like mouths of tributaries where fish are coming from this main stem for a cold water refuge. We're talking about like if you go fish the upper section of a tributary where you're catching 5-inch brook trout, that's where they exist and live for their life.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And the water temps are 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And they're maintaining those temps throughout the whole day. Well, yeah, that's a safe place to fish, but not cold water refuge areas. Cold water refuge areas should be left alone.
100%.
And that takes it's probably important to note that takes a little bit of time to get to know the difference of that.
Yeah.
It does.
If you don't know it, then you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and typically that's where you see a lot of the fishing taking place, because usually the access is probably better to some of these spots.
Yeah.
And it's probably the spots are the most detrimental to be fishing at.
Yeah. We had, and I will not mention location or name, but there is a certain cold water refuge area that we know about that is a tributary to a local water to ours, and it has seen a huge uptick in pressure during the warm months of the year, and access was made a little easier for certain reasons, which I won't mention. But I think it's just like word of mouth, and when that happens, I think that you get into personal ethics is really important, but education is what drives that. And not everybody can hear everything, and not everybody's interested in taking that approach,
No, definitely.
And I think that, when you do talk about like the ethics of warm water or warm water closures or being smart about it, like I think social media is an interesting aspect to the cultural equation, in that, when new fly fishermen start, and like I said, I'm not judging anybody because I was in this boat myself too.
Yeah, me too.
You have social media, and you just want to post pictures, like you're proud of your catch. You're just so excited. You get almost obsessed with the next big fish that you can catch. And then you got to like put it up, you know what I mean? And then what ends up happening is, I think part of that cultural equation that we need to address is, then I think it leads people to doing things that maybe they shouldn't do, you know what I mean? And then if you do get into a spot where you find a refuge area and there's a bunch of big fish sitting in there, I mean, are you going to say, no, I ethically shouldn't fish for these? Or are you going to be like, wow, I can really take a really large fish and get an awesome picture of this thing,
Yep.
But eventually, hopefully you get to a point where you say,
yeah, I'm in a point with this social media stuff that, like, I catch plenty of big fish a year. I don't have to put them up right when I catch them. Maybe I'll wait 6 months. Maybe I'll wait a year before I post up that fish.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't do it at all. Maybe I'll just show it to you.
Yeah.
And like, it's weird how I've gone through this phase. I don't even really care about the picture of the big ones now. I like the interesting ones.
Yeah.
I like the really pretty ones. I like zooming in, and that's where I'm at on my social media posts.
I got to be better about taking pictures this year, not for social media, but for subject matter. I do most of my paintings they're kind of inspired by the perspective that I get through certain photos and stuff like that. So I got to be better about that, but kind of the same way. And like, I like having pictures so that I can remember the moment. It definitely, like, I'm a visual person, so it takes me back to that moment from a personal level. But like sharing it isn't as much a big deal to me. And like, social media and even what we're doing right now, I've kind of gotten to a point where I'd like to give back and hopefully something good happens from things, I don't really care about, uh,
The glory shot.
no,
Yeah, me either.
no, I don't. And that's why I'm excited about what we're doing though.
I purposely tell people when they're taking my picture, I said, this is a picture of the fish. It's not of me.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's just the fish in my hands.
Yeah.
And
The pictures that I like that have like me in them or something like that are the ones where we're like in a group and like
Yeah.
Joe's got like, rabbit ears up or something like that. Like but the reason why is because it's capturing kind of the joy that we collectively have in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I agree. And I agree. But I mean, that's why I'm excited about what we're doing with the podcast here though, is like, and that's why I'm excited about what we're doing collecting data is I'm just at a point where I want to have fun with the people I love and I want to have fun in show clients like a new experience. And I want to give back to the ecosystems that I love and just hopefully bring maybe something good out, and so, I mean, that's kind of, it's the fun part about what we're doing or maybe what we're trying to do.
I think you and I are both in our fishing stage where like we get as much enjoyment out of a client catching a first fish or something, and it's like they're hooked forever.
Yeah And it's funny, I think what fueled me to like have that desire was my kids and stuff like that, and my wife, because it was like
Your wife is insane.
Oh, she's
I love listening to her catch fish. You can hear her like 5 miles down the river screaming when she's caught it.
Yeah, and it's great.
It's like, it's pure joy.
It is pure joy. And I have had so many days where like they'll be like, "Do you want to fish?" I'm like, "No, I'm having fun sitting right here in the rower's seat," and I remember being out on the river with her, and she was screaming. It was one of those days where you couldn't get a full take, but they were just nipping at stuff.
Yeah.
And every time they nipped, it would be right down below the boat, and she'd scream. And then she'd laugh her head off because there was this older gentleman that was swinging this riffle kind of off to the side of us. And every time she did it, he would laugh. And then after she did that like 5 or 6 times, she finally looked over and she's like, "I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Honey, that's just fine." He's like, "I just wish my wife got that excited about anything anymore."
Oh, I love my favorite picture of my wife is she's got this beautiful leopard rainbow and she is just beaming. I think it was the first rainbow that we had caught, and it was a monster, and she's just beaming. It's my favorite picture.
I know which picture you're talking about.
And it like every time I see the picture,
yeah,
it makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's what makes fishing great. It is. It's what makes it great. And it's like, and it's that level of camaraderie with it all and everything too. And and
we're both lucky that we have wives that support us in what we do.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mein, it's there's a lot of times where she's just, she's always like, "Yeah, it'd be good for you to go fishing."
Yeah. I get told to go fishing.
Yeah, go
like, you really need to get out of the house.
Yeah. And what's nice too is I can always blame it on John. I'll say,
"Oh, I do the same thing. Alex wants me to go do this."
He's been going through some stuff and he really needs somebody to go fishing with,
which is all true.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's a good excuse.
Say, "Oh yeah, you should definitely go do that." But they like getting out too, and they like enjoying the river. And we've had a lot of good days even together with our 2 boats with our families out there. And it's gonna be a good year this year for sure. But warm water, man. We got off on I got deep.
That's okay.
It is good. It is good. But the tactics, diversifying that type thing, like we kind of touched on that a little bit of like fishing for other fish and what have you. But I do definitely think like it's a great point to say, how am I going to become a better angler? You know what I mean? And I think that like if you treat closing down certain bodies of water and you're like, I can't fish this anymore because it's gotten too warm, just really take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah. Go find someplace new.
Yeah. And say, I
Great.
I don't really know how to do this.
Always
you
be
know?
learning.
Exactly.
Which is great. That's what great about this sport or pastime or whatever it is. You will never know half the things there are to know about half the things there are to know. You know?
No, and it's hard because it's like, you always talk to somebody that is really just a pro at like what they do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no different than us like poling around in the skiff. Like, I mean, in July, that was a great opportunity for us. And like John said, you don't have to have a boat or a skiff. You can just go down and fish on the flats and do it that route or rocks or whatever. But like, if you take somebody who's a trout angler or a fly fisherman that does your traditional kind of like fly fishing for trout tactics, whether it's, floating dries or fishing streamers with sinking lines or nymphing or tight line nymphing or indicator. And if you take any of them and you just like, and they had never cast like a heavy sinking line with an 8 or a 9 weight in the surf, and then you take them down there, they'll be lost. But that's just like we were saying, it's a great opportunity where you say, okay, I got a trout season till now. Now I'm going to switch tactics and I'm going to try this out. You know what I mean? And like you and I both haven't gotten into pike fishing.
No. There's just so much to do, and
there's so little time.
There's not enough time.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing for us too is like, we talked about like stripers though, but like that's kind of the switch for us that like if we want to do a float trip or we have clients that want to float, when that warm water switch gets flipped in the beginning, mid-June or, the beginning of July, that switch gets flipped to smallmouth. And that for us, that's what we focus on. Because luckily we're able to do the same style of fishing as far as from a drift boat. Our tactics are different.
Yeah, just for different species.
Yeah, and for a different species. And I mean, we streamer fish very similar. But, then when you get into fishing, 7 weight rods with poppers and all that, that's obviously beyond what we do for trout.
Yep.
But it's a good time to do it. And for clients that come and stay here at the yurts, like we can still take you out on the river. You can still have a great day.
Still have a good float.
You can still have a good float. You can still have a nice shore lunch, and you can still catch, fish. And the thing about like, it's good that we got kind of back into the smallmouth talk is like, because I'm a trout snob too. You said earlier that you're like a trout snob. At heart, I'm 100%.
It's where it starts. I think that's where it starts for a majority of people.
Yeah, and it's like your roots, and it's like what you originally fell in love with, and I'm no different. But the funny thing about it is that I've never taken anybody smallie fishing that doesn't have a blast.
Never. Yeah.
They're just laughing and having so much fun.
I've never not had fun.
I haven't, and it's like there's
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You just have a good time, and like the waters that we fish, you also catch these absolute trophy fall fish,
right.
monster fall fish.
Yeah. Oh.
And they're just hilarious.
They are. One of the most fun nights I had. We went fishing for browns.
Yeah.
But we wound up catching.
Yeah, I think I caught one little like 6-inch brown on a dry, and then we just commenced to catching trophy chubs, fall fish, or in Maine we call them chubs even though they aren't. But a fall fish is like, just so you know, they're the largest member of the minnow family.
Yep.
They're special.
They are special.
People look down on them.
Yeah.
They're a native.
Not me.
They're a native, and like, but I have so many chub pictures of John, and
I'm a professional.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah, he knows how to get the large class. He's got the right retrieve. He's got his specialty chub flies developed, and but yeah, no, I swear that the happiest that you are in any photo that I have. It's with like one of those like 3 pound, like, 18-inch, chubs.
I liked the males when they're all dressed up for spawning. They get the calcified crusties on their head.
Yeah, they do. They get all gross and crusty and like purple and
pinks.
Yeah, they're an interesting fish.
They're beautiful.
They are. I think, I could do without the crusty kind of like noses that they get,
No,
but
that's part of it, man.
kind of just adds to it. But they're very aggressive too. That's the thing too. It's funny. Like they get knocked a lot, but I a couple years ago, Bentley was with me and we were fishing, in this pool, and we were fishing this shoreline, and I was fishing a big cougar, and I'm popping that thing, and out of nowhere, these two come up, and one of them was like probably 18, and the other one was just a little bit smaller. And what was so funny is they came from two different directions to my fly, and they literally just boom headbutted each other. And the bigger one won out, and then he ended up taking the fly. And it's crazy how aggressive they can be. But yeah, I mean, they're a good mix. And with the smallmouth floats, is you get to have some fun, and you know.
Yeah, man, I've caught those chubs everywhere. Up in the Rangeley area,
they have some big ones.
Oh my god, you run a double nymph rig and you catch two 18-inch chubs at once.
Around here, my go-to is in those big deep pools where you like catch a couple and then you just put on anything with a long rabbit strip tail and just fish it slow.
I had an old timer yell across the river to me. He goes, "Hey, what are you using? Tell me so I don't use it, so I don't want to catch those chubs."
Yeah, you get up in some of those locations. It's like every cast.
Yeah, those Rangeley chubs really like mop flies.
Yeah,
guys, I'll let you secret.
Yeah, the old mop fly. Maybe we'll have to have one of those on the Vice section. But yeah. So warm water, just to kind of recap, like.
And I don't know what the lethality temp for a chub is. I think you're okay.
I think you're okay.
I think they're pretty resilient.
That's a good point. We should fact check ourselves on that and find out. Yeah. We can get that intel.
Yeah, because I do actually pick those up in the warm water.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. But so warm water though, guys, like kind of just our suggestion would be, think about it. Get yourself a thermometer. Study up on, what those lethal limits are for the fish in your home waters, and, just make some different decisions and take the opportunities to go fish other areas, and you'll be surprised what you learn, how much fun you'll have. Yeah. And you're probably going to meet new people doing new things too, which is what, fly fishing's all about, Yeah.
And if it's like approaching those lethal limits, but you're still think you're pretty good to fish, upsize your tippet, get stronger tippet, land your fish faster, and get them back in the water as quick as you can.
Yeah. And that's a whole other thing that we could talk about at some point in time, is like, playing fish, you know what I mean? That gets into a whole thing. Cause even when you aren't even close to those, it's just, there's no point in, if you can get a trout, if say the water's 65 degrees and you can get, rainbow trout to take your fly on 3X.
Use 3X.
Yep. And get him into the net as soon as possible and get him released as soon as possible. And don't sit there and say, well, I want to fish a 2-weight and I want to fish 7X, and then don't go brag to, everybody that you caught this 18-inch trout and it took you a half an hour to get him in on 7X.
Yeah. I've had a few people do that, and I'm like, so what?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And but that just gets down to, the same thing that we were saying as far as like photos, you know what I mean? And like, are photos driving your desire to do things that you ethically shouldn't do? You know what I mean? Is bragging about what you caught a fish on for X tippet, worth it? I would argue not. And it's just something to think about, you know what I mean? And it's, it's kind of I don't know if it's a hot topic. We'll see. You guys can comment in the comment section about, what we're saying and what your thoughts are on it. And we can address some of those in further episodes. But yeah, I agree with that. Get them in quick.
Yep.
Get them in quick. Get them in the river quick. Back in the river quick.
Yep. And I've actually started taking a lot of just net picks now.
Yeah.
don't even really take them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to get them unhooked in the bag, keep them in the bag, you know, and like, and if you do want to take a picture of a big fish, make it quick.
Yep.
Make it quick. And if you can, keep it in the water.
Yep.
You know,
if you're in a boat, keep it over the side.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do have to take that fish out, make sure that you're in a situation that your escape plan is like rock solid, you know? So like where you see people and they take the fish out and they're holding it in the boat and then they lose it and they lose it in the boat. That's probably not a rock solid plan.
No.
But like if you're hanging over the side of the boat and there's a net and you pick that up and it drops back in the net in the river, that's a better plan. Or at the very least, have somebody hold the net under the fish so it can go in the net and go back into the river very quickly. But keep them wet.
I had a great one this spring where I was doing just that. I was by myself, had it in the net, over the boat, snapped a picture. I set the camera down. I don't know what I did, but somehow I let go of the net and the net just started floating down. So I pulled anchor.
Yeah.
Went down, grabbed my net, and the fish was still in the bag.
Was that the net you made?
No, it was a new fish pond.
Fish pond, yeah. Well, at least you didn't. Yeah, at least you didn't lose the net. But
yeah, so that's a good way to go out, right?
yeah, yeah. So warm water, and think about it, guys. I hope that our discussion was helpful, and we'll be tuning in with another episode next week and more gear reviews in the future. And appreciate you guys giving us a space to talk about these things. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, definitely like and subscribe.
And
make a comment too.
Yeah. The comments are good.
If anything you guys want to talk about, put it down there.
Yeah, ideas are good. Yeah, and give us ideas for gear reviews and give us ideas for even on the Vice. You know, if you guys have a fly that you'd like to have us talk about, and show like what do you guys want? What do you guys want us to talk about as far as the meat of an episode?
Yeah, we've had a couple. Well, we've had someone asked about doing a live stream. And I don't know how that would work, just so they could ask questions and stuff. But
yeah, I'm not technologically there yet.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Maybe someday, but yeah. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Thank you.